Look around your house for a second, your kitchen, your medicine, your daily routine. Here's the part nobody tells you. A lot of modern life exists because World War II forced humanity to invent faster than ever before. Not for comfort, not for progress, but because millions of people were dying, and solutions were needed now. This war didn't just produce weapons, it produced ideas, technology, inventions meant to win a global fight for survival. And when the war ended, those inventions didn't disappear. They followed us home. The microwave oven, born from war, built for speed. The microwave oven wasn't invented to reheat leftovers. It was born because World War II needed to find enemy aircraft before they found you. And one engineer accidentally melted a candy bar while building a weapon. That's not a metaphor. That's exactly what happened. And if you've ever stood alone in a kitchen at 2 a.m., staring at cold food while the microwave hums like a quiet engine of mercy, you're using a machine that exists only because global war demanded faster killing and faster detection. Let me walk you through how that happened. By the early 1940s, the war in the air was escalating fast. Germany and Britain were locked in nightly bombing raids. Aircraft moved faster, flew lower, and attacked with almost no warning. Whoever could see first, won. That meant radar. Radar wasn't new, but it was unreliable, bulky, and limited. The Allies needed radar systems that were more powerful, more accurate, and small enough to deploy everywhere. Ships, planes, ground stations, anywhere that mattered. At the heart of radar was a device called a magnetron, a vacuum tube that generated high-frequency radio waves. Early magnetrons were weak, so the US poured money, manpower, and pressure into fixing that problem. Enter Percy Spencer. Percy Spencer wasn't a celebrity scientist. He didn't have a PhD. He was a self-taught engineer who grew up poor in rural Maine, left school early, and taught himself electronics by reading textbooks at night. By WWII, he worked for Raytheon, one of the companies racing to improve radar systems for the US military. Spencer specialized in magnetrons. His job was simple and brutal: make radar stronger and more reliable, fast. One day in 1945, Spencer was standing near an active radar set when he noticed something strange. The chocolate bar in his pocket had melted. Not slowly, not from body heat, melted. That moment matters more than people realize, because Spencer didn't ignore it. He didn't laugh it off. He stopped and thought, that shouldn't happen. The accident that changed kitchens. Forever, Spencer started experimenting. He put popcorn kernels near the magnetron. They popped. He put an egg near it. It exploded. And in that instant, Spencer understood something no one had fully grasped yet. Microwaves didn't just travel through space, they could heat food from the inside out. Not with flames, not with coils, but by exciting water molecules directly. This wasn't cooking as humanity had known it for thousands of years. This was energy weapon physics accidentally turning into heat. And here's the key point. This discovery only happened because radar technology existed at all. No war, no radar race, no magnetron breakthroughs, no microwave oven. From battlefield tech to countertop monster, Raytheon moved fast. In 1945, they patented the idea. In 1947, they released the first commercial microwave oven, the Radarange. And it was a beast. 6 feet tall, weighed over 700 pounds. Cost the equivalent of $50,000 today. Required water cooling. Installed mostly in restaurants, ships, and hospitals. This wasn't for families. This was for institutions that needed food now. But the core technology worked, and that meant refinement was inevitable. Over the next 2 decades, magnetrons got smaller. Power usage dropped. Costs fell. Safety improved. By the 1970s, microwaves started entering middle-class homes. By the 1980s, they were everywhere, and today, nearly every household on Earth has one. Why the microwave still matters. Today, here's the thing people miss. The microwave didn't just change cooking, it changed how modern life functions. Hospitals rely on them, restaurants rely on them, factories rely on them. Offices, gas stations, dorm rooms, military bases, they enable rapid meal prep, food safety mass, catering, emergency feeding, Time efficiency on a societal scale. And it all traces back to radar operators trying not to get bombed out of the sky. Even the magnetron inside your microwave today is a direct descendant of radar systems. Same principle, same physics, same core design. You are literally cooking food with war-grade electromagnetic technology. The dark irony. World War II killed over 60 million people. It burned cities to ash, flattened families, left scars that still haven't healed. And yet, out of that pressure, that fear, that desperation, came inventions that quietly shape everyday life. Your modern comfort is built on wartime urgency. And this is just the first invention. Duct tape, the fix that war forced into existence. Duct tape wasn't invented to fix things around your house. It was invented because American soldiers were dying while trying to open ammunition under fire. That's not exaggeration. That's the reason it exists. And the wild part? The solution didn't come from a weapons lab. It came from a pissed-off factory worker who refused to shut up. The problem, no one wanted to admit, World War II chewed through ammunition at a terrifying rate. Rifle rounds, machine gun belts, grenades, mortar shells, all of it was shipped overseas in wax-sealed cardboard crates. The idea was simple: keep moisture out. The reality? Those crates were a nightmare to open. They were sealed with wax and paper tabs that tore, jammed, or snapped off completely. Soldiers had to pry them open with knives, bayonets, or whatever they had, sometimes while under direct enemy fire. Seconds mattered, and sometimes those seconds got men killed. But here's the part that should bother you. Everyone knew this was a problem. It just wasn't getting fixed. Enter Vesta. Stout Vesta. Stout wasn't an engineer, she wasn't a general, she wasn't a scientist. She was a factory worker in Illinois, inspecting ammunition crates for the US military. And every day she saw the same flaw. She knew that if crates were hard to open in a factory, they'd be deadly to open in combat. So she did something radical for the 1940s. She wrote a letter, not to a supervisor, not to a middle manager. She wrote directly to President Franklin D. Roosevelt. In the letter, she explained, plainly, that soldiers needed a strong, waterproof cloth tape with an adhesive that wouldn't fail. Something that could seal crates securely and tear open instantly. Her supervisors told her to drop it. She didn't. From ignored complaint to war priority, Roosevelt read the letter. And to his credit, he didn't ignore it. He forwarded it to the War Production Board with a note that essentially said, "Fix this." That's when the gears finally turned. The solution was assigned to Johnson & Johnson, working with their subsidiary Permacell. What they created was simple and brilliant. A tape made of cotton cloth backing for strength, rubber-based adhesive for flexibility, waterproof coating for protection. It was olive drab green to match military gear. It tore cleanly by hand. It stuck in heat. It stuck in cold. It stuck in mud. And most importantly, it worked when everything else failed. Soldiers loved it instantly. Why soldiers used it for everything? Once duct tape hit the battlefield, it escaped its original purpose almost immediately. Troops used it to seal ammunition crates, patch bullet holes, repair boots, fix torn uniforms, secure weapons, waterproof radios, bind broken equipment, even make emergency medical fixes. It wasn't official doctrine, it was survival improvisation. And that's where duct tape earned its real reputation, not as a product, but as a mindset. If it moves and it shouldn't, duct tape it. If it doesn't move and it should, duct tape it harder. The name everyone gets wrong. Here's a detail most people screw up. It wasn't originally called duct tape. It was called duck tape, named after duck cloth, the heavy cotton fabric it was made from, and because water rolled off it like a duck's back. The duct part came later. After the war, manufacturers noticed civilians using the tape for heating ducts. They changed the color to silver, marketed it for HVAC use, and the name slowly morphed into duct tape. Ironically, it's actually terrible for ducts. Heat dries the adhesive. It fails over time. But the name stuck because the reputation was already unstoppable. Why duct tape still exists? Today, duct tape didn't survive because of branding. It survived because it filled a role nothing else could. Strong, flexible, cheap, fast, reliable under pressure. Modern versions are used in construction, automotive repair, military logistics, film production, emergency response space missions. Yes, NASA uses it. Everyday households worldwide. And every role traces back to a single truth. War doesn't reward elegance. It rewards solutions that work immediately. The bigger meaning? Duct tape isn't impressive on a shelf. It doesn't feel high-tech. It doesn't look advanced. But it represents something WWII forced humanity to learn the hard way. When lives are on the line, perfection doesn't matter. Speed does. Reliability does. Adaptability does. And sometimes the invention that saves the most lives is just a strip of cloth and glue that someone refused to stop complaining about. Penicillin, the drug that stopped death from winning. Before World War II, getting shot wasn't what usually killed you. Infection did. A bullet could miss every vital organ. A surgeon could do everything right, and you'd still rot from the inside out because bacteria finished the job days later. That was normal. That was expected. And World War II finally said, this is unacceptable. Life before antibiotics was brutal. Before antibiotics, a cut could kill you. Pneumonia was often a death sentence. Infected shrapnel wounds meant slow, miserable deaths. Surgery was a gamble even when successful doctors could clean wounds. They could amputate, they could pray. But once bacteria took hold, they had almost no way to stop it. In World War I, more soldiers died from infection than from bullets. By the time World War II started, military planners knew one thing for sure. If this war was going to be fought on beaches, in jungles, in mud, in ruins, infection would kill more men than enemy fire unless something changed. The mold that changed everything. Penicillin wasn't discovered during WWII. It was discovered earlier, by accident, in 1928 by Alexander Fleming. He noticed mold-killing bacteria in a petri dish. He published it, and then almost nothing happened. Why? Because penicillin was incredibly hard to produce. Unstable, weak in early forms, nearly impossible to scale. So it sat there, a miracle nobody could use, until the war made it necessary. By 1941, Allied casualty projections were horrifying. Military doctors knew, even if soldiers survived the battlefield, even if surgery went perfectly, infection would still erase huge numbers of them. So government stepped in. The US and Britain turned penicillin into a strategic priority right alongside planes and tanks. This wasn't medical research anymore. This was war production. The industrial breakthrough teams of scientists, especially in the US, figured out how to mass-produce penicillin using deep tank fermentation, a method borrowed from food and industrial processing. They found stronger mold strains. They optimized growth conditions. They scaled production like never before. By D-Day in 1944, the US military had enough penicillin to treat every Allied casualty. That had never happened in human history. For the first time, infection was no longer guaranteed to win. What changed on the battlefield? The difference was immediate and dramatic. Penicillin prevented gangrene, stopped wound infections, treated pneumonia, saved soldiers with shrapnel injuries, allowed surgeons to operate more aggressively. Soldiers who would have died in World War I walked out of hospitals in World War II. Survival rates skyrocketed. Amputations dropped. Recovery times shortened. Confidence in battlefield medicine exploded. War didn't just get deadlier, it got medically smarter. The unspoken revolution. Here's the part people rarely talk about. Penicillin didn't just save soldiers, it rewired human expectations of survival. After the war, civilians demanded access. Hospitals adopted antibiotics as standard. Childhood infections stopped being death threats. Life expectancy jumped dramatically. Diseases that had haunted humanity for centuries, scarlet fever, syphilis, bacterial pneumonia, were suddenly treatable. Not cured forever, not eliminated, but manageable. And it all happened because war refused to accept infection as collateral damage anymore. The irony that still haunts us. Penicillin didn't come from compassion, it came from logistics. It came from a war machine realizing that dead soldiers were inefficient. That's the uncomfortable truth. The greatest medical breakthrough of the 20th century didn't happen because humanity suddenly cared more. It happened because saving lives became strategically valuable. And today, every antibiotic you've ever taken traces its lineage back to that wartime decision, even as antibiotic resistance threatens to undo it all. The hard truth? World War II didn't invent penicillin, but it forced humanity to use it at scale. And once people saw death could be stopped, there was no going back. Next up, we're shifting gears again from saving lives to bonding materials in ways nobody expected. Discovered while trying to build better weapons and accidentally creating one of the strongest adhesives in human history. Superglue exists because World War II needed clear plastic for gun sights, and instead got a substance so sticky it ruined the experiment. Not saved it, ruined it. And for years that mistake was thrown away. What the war was trying to build. By 1942, the US military had a serious problem. Aircraft gunners needed lightweight, crystal-clear gun sights, optical components that could survive vibration, cold, heat, and combat abuse. Glass was heavy and fragile, so researchers started hunting for clear plastics that could replace it. At Eastman Kodak's research labs, a chemist named Harry Coover was put on the task. His mission wasn't glamorous. Find a material that was transparent, could be molded easily, would hold up under stress, wouldn't shatter simple on paper. Brutal in reality. The failure that got tossed. Aside, Coover and his team tested hundreds of chemical formulations. One group stood out immediately for the wrong reason. It bonded to everything: glass, metal, skin, lab equipment. The stuff stuck instantly and violently. It was impossible to work with. Instruments got ruined. Samples fused to benches. Nothing behaved the way it was supposed to. For gun sights, that was a disaster. So the material, cyanoacrylate, was labeled useless and shelved. That's the key detail. Superglue wasn't ignored because it didn't work. It was ignored because it worked too well. Why it took almost a decade to return. After the war ended, Coover moved on. In 1951, while working on heat-resistant polymers for jet aircraft canopies, he encountered the same compound again. This time, he recognized it. He realized cyanoacrylate didn't need pressure, didn't need heat, didn't need solvents. It bonded instantly at room temperature with minimal preparation. That wasn't a flaw, that was revolutionary. From military research to civilian shock. In 1958, the adhesive was officially introduced to the public under the name Eastman 910. People didn't believe it. Demonstrations looked fake. Steel bonded to steel objects held together with a single drop. No clamps. No curing time. One famous demo involved lifting a man off the ground using only glued metal bars. That's when the name superglue stuck, and it spread fast. Why superglue changed everything? Before superglue, bonding materials usually meant heat welding, mechanical fasteners, long cure times. Superglue changed the equation. Suddenly you could repair broken objects instantly, bond dissimilar materials, fix things in the field, work without tools or power. And once again, the military saw the value immediately. Superglue goes back to war. During the Vietnam War, cyanoacrylate adhesives were used as emergency wound sealants. Medics applied it to temporarily close cuts, control bleeding, buy time until proper treatment. Modern medical versions still exist today, specifically formulated to be safer, but the principle is the same. An adhesive invented by accident while building weapons ended up saving lives. How you use it today without thinking. Superglue is now everywhere, manufacturing automotive repair, electronics, aerospace construction, medical devices, household fixes, the phone you're holding. Parts inside it are bonded with cyanoacrylates. The car you drive? Same story, tiny amounts, massive strength. The pattern should feel familiar. Now radar accidentally gave us the microwave. A factory worker forced the creation of duct tape. War logistics turned penicillin into a miracle drug. And now, a failed weapons experiment gave the world one of the strongest adhesives ever created. World War II didn't care about elegance, it cared about results. And sometimes the things that didn't fit the battlefield ended up reshaping everyday life instead. Next up, We'll finish this run with something that feels very modern, but started decades earlier than most people realize. How World War II built the first unmanned weapons and surveillance machines long before anyone called them drones. Drones, the war that taught machines to fly alone. When people hear the word drone, they think modern. Satellites, live feeds, remote strikes, 21st century warfare. But the truth is way more unsettling. Drones were born in World War II, when humans decided flying without a pilot was worth experimenting with. And they didn't start as tools of convenience. They started as disposable machines. Training took months, aircraft were expensive, losses were constant. Every mission risked, death capture, strategic intelligence falling into enemy hands. Military planners started asking a dangerous question. What if we could send the plane without the pilot? Not to save money, to save lives, and to push missions humans couldn't survive. The first drones weren't called drones. During WWII, unmanned aircraft were referred to as target aircraft, aerial torpedoes, remote-controlled planes. One of the earliest and most important was the radio plane OQ-2, developed in the early 1940s. It was small, propeller-driven, radio-controlled from the ground. Its primary role? Target practice for anti-aircraft gunners. Why does that matter? Because to hit enemy aircraft, soldiers needed realistic moving targets, and drones were safer than using real pilots. Over 15,000 of these unmanned planes were built during the war. That's not experimentation. That's mass production. The darker experiments. Target drones were only the beginning. Both Allied and Axis powers experimented with weaponized unmanned aircraft. Germany developed the V-1 flying bomb, a pilotless cruise missile guided by a primitive autopilot system. The US explored projects like Operation Aphrodite, which used remote-controlled bombers packed with explosives, guided toward heavily fortified targets. Some of these projects failed, some were scrapped, some were too dangerous to continue. But the idea was now out in the open. You could separate the human from the machine, and once that line is crossed, there's no going back. World War II proved three things about unmanned systems. Machines could be controlled remotely. Aircraft didn't need pilots to be effective. Risk could be shifted away from humans. Even when the technology was clumsy, unreliable, and crude, it worked just enough to justify further development. After the war, that lesson stuck. Drone development accelerated quietly. During the Cold War, drones were used for reconnaissance, high-risk surveillance over enemy territory, testing defenses without risking pilots. By the late 20th century, cameras improved. Communications improved, control systems improved. By the 21st century, drones weren't experimental anymore, they were everywhere. How drones exist in your life. Today, modern drones are used for military surveillance and strikes, search and rescue, disaster response, agriculture infrastructure inspection, filmmaking, law enforcement, package delivery, personal recreation. Some save lives, some end them, some just film weddings. But every single one of them traces its DNA back to a wartime decision that said, let's send the machine instead. This is the through line of everything you've heard in this video. The microwave, duct tape, penicillin, superglue, drones. None of them were created to make life easier. They were created because World War II forced humanity to solve problems immediately, with no regard for comfort, ethics, or long-term consequences. And when the war ended, the inventions stayed. Your modern world wasn't designed in peace. It was forged under pressure. And whether we like it or not, we're still living with the results.